Hello class and welcome to another video lesson on the topic of practical electricity. Today we're going to look at part 3, which is all about the dangers or hazards of electricity. Electricity is useful, but it can also be dangerous. Now, electrical faults in appliances and circuits can cause fires and electrical shocks. So these can be dangerous. Now, the three things that you should look out for when you are dealing with electrical appliances or electrical circuits are these three, and these are the three things that we will go through in this video lesson. The first is damaged insulation, the second is overheating of cables, and the last one is damp conditions. Let's go through the first one. We're going to talk about damaged insulation here. The wires inside the cable is protected by a layer of insulation around the outside. The insulation layer is usually made out of rubber. So this layer here that you see is usually made out of rubber, and this is the insulation that we are talking about. So it's there to protect us from touching the wire that is inside the cable. Now, insulating materials become worn with time and use. For example, the electric cables of the hairdryer and clothes iron usually get bent and twisted. And when that happens, this might cause the electrical insulation to crack and break, thus exposing the conducting wires inside, as you can see in this picture here. The exposed live wire can cause severe electrical shock to the user if it is touched. It can lead to serious injury, even death. The second hazard of electricity that we'll talk about is overheating of cables. If there is too much current passing through a wire, it can heat up the wire and the insulation can melt, causing it to emit poisonous fumes or even catch fire. The insulation can melt if a thin wire is used to supply current to a high-powered appliance, for example, like a heater or a conditioner. If you remember from the previous topic, a thin wire usually have a large resistance. And when you have a large current going through a wire that has a large resistance, that can produce heat. And that's why when you have too much current inside, especially a thin wire, a high resistance wire, that can cause the wire to melt because it is too hot. Or this could happen also if a single mains outlet is used to supply current to multiple appliances. So in this case, you have a wire that's probably at the appropriate thickness, but you connect too much appliance to that particular wire or that particular outlet, and there's too much current flowing there, causing it to heat up. And therefore, that can cause melting and that can cause fire. Thus, when appliances are being wired, manufacturers must make sure that the wires are of the correct thickness. So thin wires are used for appliances that need less power, like your mobile phones or your lamps, okay? And thick wires are used for appliances that need more power. High-powered appliances such as your washing machine, your air conditioning, and also your heater, these things usually have a very thick cable, and that is because these things are high powered. There's a lot of current passing through them, and you need a thick cable or thick wire to let that current flow without a lot of heating happening, and then it is safer. The last thing we'll talk about here is damp conditions. So this is quite straightforward. When using electricity, it is important to avoid damp or wet condition because water is an electrical conductor. For example, if your hands are wet and you touch an electrical appliance, the water will conduct through the wire and will go into your body and will flow in through your body, and that can cause electric shocks, and that can even be fatal for you. Just so you know, our human bodies can only withstand a current of about 50 milliamps. So that's around 0.05 amp. Okay, so not a lot of current. Any current larger than that will electrocute us and will cause serious damage to us. And that's pretty much it for this video lesson. So just make sure you are able to describe some of the hazards of electricity And there are three that we looked at. Number one is damaged insulation. Number two, overheating of cables. And finally, number three, damp conditions. So these are the things that can cause electrical fires or electrical shocks. So these are the things that we need to look at when we are using electricity at homes. The next part we'll look at is part four, which will talk about the safe use of electricity at homes.